Tharky across the stars. The night side of the galaxy glowed softly, countless suns shining like tiny candles in an ocean of darkness. To most species it was peaceful, quiet, endless. But for one world named Virelion, the stars had become a graveyard. The Virelians once believed they were protected by the great Galactic Union. Their cities were tall, their oceans clean, and their people proud. Then one day the sky caught fire. Unknown ships came without warning, black metal shadows that rained destruction. The Virelians fought with all they had, but their defense grid fell within hours. Their leaders screamed across every open frequency, begging for mercy. "Please, someone help us," the signal cried. It was raw, broken, full of static. It repeated over and over, reaching deeper into space. "We are dying. Please, anyone," in the great halls of the Galactic Council. The message was received. Ambassadors looked at each other, uncomfortable. Answering meant risking fleets, supplies, lives, and what was Virelion to them? Just a small world on the edge of forgotten sectors. The discussion ended quickly. The Council chose silence. The galaxy moved on, but the cry did not fade. It kept traveling, past patrol lines, through pirate territory, across the cold ruins of abandoned colonies, until it reached a dark region marked on every map with one word: forbidden. There, on the far side of an old nebula, rested the forgotten system called Sol. Once the galaxy had feared this place. They had called it the home of Deathworlders, beings too wild to control, too dangerous to trust. The Galactic decree had sealed the system centuries ago. No ships were allowed near, no trade, no contact. Humanity had been erased from the stars, and yet, deep beneath the gray surface of the moon, ancient machines still waited. They had not heard a signal in hundreds of years. When the Virelian distress call finally touched their antennas, old servers flickered alive. Systems rebooted, sensors warmed, and a single synthetic voice whispered, "Incoming SOS, non-Terran origin." In Earth orbit, a monitoring station long thought useless blinked red. Commander Reyes, half asleep, looked up from his console. He replayed the signal again. The screams, the static, the silence. "This isn't a drill," he said quietly. "Send it to Central." Within hours, the old network awakened. Messages bounced between outposts, colonies, and secret stations hidden inside asteroid belts. Humanity had been quiet for a long time, too long, but the instinct to answer a call for help had never died. On Mars, in the cold citadel of the Terran Confederacy, lights came on across the command board. Generals, admirals, engineers, and scientists gathered around a single glowing map of the galaxy. The coordinates blinked at the edge of the screen. Admiral Kale, a tall man with gray eyes, stared at it for a long moment. "So they ignored them again," he said softly. "Then we won't." Orders went out, engines roared to life. Massive hangar doors opened after centuries of silence. Old dreadnoughts, scarred from forgotten wars, powered up once more. The ships bore no colors of conquest, only the blue-white emblem of Earth. Each hull carried stories of sacrifice, loss and strength all across human space. The same message appeared on every screen. "A world has called for help, and we will answer." The galaxy once called them monsters. Creatures born from a planet that tried to kill them every day. Earth's gravity was brutal, its storms violent, its predators relentless. Yet humanity thrived. They had learned to survive the impossible. And when the galaxy turned away, they built their own strength in silence. Now that silence ended, Fleet Command authorized the deployment of the Erebus Expeditionary Force, a formation of warships once sealed by treaty. Engines burned blue across the void. Radar beacons flared awake. A storm of light and steel rose from the cradle of the Death World. From orbit, the Earth looked calm, oceans glittering under the sun. But in the hearts of those who left it, there burned a quiet fury. The Virelians had asked for help. Humanity had heard them. And this time, no council, no decree, no empire would stop them. As the Terran fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, shockwaves rippled through subspace. Monitoring posts across neighboring empires detected the energy surge and panicked. Reports spread fast. Unknown signature. Massive fleet movement from Sol system. In the upper chambers of the Galactic Council, panic replaced pride. The same ambassadors who once ignored the signal now whispered in fear. "The Deathworlders are moving," one said. "They heard the SOS," another replied. "Then may the stars protect us all," murmured a third. Out in the void, the human ships cut through the darkness. their engines painting lines of light across the stars. They were coming not to conquer, but to prove that compassion born from struggle could still shake the heavens. And as the Varelian distress beacon played one last time, somewhere in the distance, the cold voice of an automated Terran relay whispered back, "Signal received. Help is coming." The silent arrival space was vast and merciless, yet it carried whispers in that endless black ocean. Light from 100 suns glimmered faintly. The Varelian signal had long faded into static, their world silent except for the crackle of burning skies, the few survivors huddled in ruins, looking upward, hoping the stars would answer. They never expected who would come. Hours became days, and the once busy orbital lanes above Varelian hung empty. The invaders had left, leaving only death and ash behind. The Council's aid never came, no fleet, no relief. The last living Varelian commander, a woman named Lura, stood among the shattered remains of her command tower, staring at the horizon. Her hands trembled, her people were dying. Yet something deep inside her whispered, "Wait." Far across the void, the Terran fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel, one ship after another slipping back into real space like giants awakening from dreams. They made no announcement, no broadcast, no warning. Their engines were silent, their weapons powered but cold. The flagship Erebus Prime took point, its black hull absorbing the light of nearby stars. Inside the command bridge, Admiral Kale stood surrounded by his officers. Their screens showed the coordinates of Varelion, still distant but closing fast. "Keep stealth drives active," Kale ordered quietly. "We arrive unseen. Human ships were built for survival, not beauty." Each vessel carried scars, plasma burns, asteroid impacts, marks of battles forgotten by time, yet together they moved with unity. Like wolves crossing dark snow, silent but unstoppable, the galaxy had forgotten that humans did not announce their wars. They simply appeared, and when they appeared, entire systems remembered what fear felt like within hours. Long-range probes reached the Varelian system. The data streamed back. A planet in ruin, orbit filled with debris, radiation levels high, survivors minimal. Kale's jaw tightened. "No government response detected?" he asked. "None, sir," came the reply. The Council didn't even send drones. He looked at the screen for a long moment, his reflection cold and steady. "Then we are the government now," he said. The Terran fleet began to move, slowly, carefully. Their massive form slipped through the dust clouds surrounding the ruined planet. Sensors extended, scanning for survivors. They picked up faint life signs, hundreds, maybe thousands, hidden underground, weak but alive. "Deploy humanitarian units," Kale commanded. "Priority on medical and shelter." But not all of humanity's ships were built for peace. Among them moved the Dreadguard, the Deathworlder warships, armored titans that could flatten continents if provoked. Their job was simple, to make sure no one dared to interrupt the rescue. On the surface of Varelion, the sky trembled as the first human dropships descended. The Varelians, frail and gray-skinned, watched from the shadows of broken towers. Their eyes widened as the metal beasts landed. Their ramps hissed open, revealing figures in dark exo-armor. They were tall, strong, their steps heavy, their helmets glowing faint blue. One of them removed her helmet, breathing the toxic air without fear. Her voice was calm, steady. "We're here to help." The survivors didn't understand at first. Who are you?" one of them asked weakly. The soldier smiled faintly. "Humans," she said. "We heard your call." The news spread fast through the underground shelters. The Deathworlders had come, but they weren't burning cities or taking prisoners. They were giving food, healing wounds, building walls. The very monsters the galaxy had warned them about were now saving them in orbit. Kale watched the live feed, human medics kneeling beside alien children, soldiers sharing oxygen masks with the weak, engineers restoring power lines. The Admiral said nothing, he didn't need to. The image spoke for itself, but elsewhere something stirred. Far from the Varelian system, in the Council's secure communication center, alarms blared. A sensor officer shouted, "Multiple unknown fleets detected near Sector 12. "Identify," barked a supervisor. "Terran signatures," came the quiet reply. Panic spread like fire. "They're back," whispered an ambassador. "The Deathworlders are back." The Council called for emergency meetings, debating whether to confront or hide, but deep down, they knew the truth. Humanity wasn't here for war. Yet war would follow them anyway. Back on Varelion, night fell again. The once dead world flickered with new light. Human campfires burning warm against alien ruins. The Varelian survivors sat close to their strange saviors, listening as they spoke of Earth, of storms and survival, of hope born in the harshest places. One young Varelian looked up at the stars and whispered, "The galaxy abandoned us. But you came." The human medic beside him smiled softly. "We don't abandon anyone," she said. Above them, the fleet stayed in orbit, watchful and silent, guarding the world like a mother watching her child sleep. For the first time in a long while, Varelian dreamed, and far beyond the nebula, the rest of the galaxy began to whisper again, some in fear, some in awe, because the Deathworlders had returned, not as conquerors, but as something far more dangerous, as protectors. Echoes of fear across the galaxy, the message spread faster than light. The Deathworlders had returned. The words echoed through every government chamber, every trading hub, every pirate den, and every hidden colony. No one believed it at first. They thought humanity had vanished, erased by their own madness centuries ago. Yet the proof was undeniable. Varelian was alive again because of them. On the capital world of the Galactic Council, chaos ruled. Screens showed footage of Terran dreadnoughts moving through orbit. Silent and vast council members argued, shouted, panicked. "We banned them for a reason," one cried. "They will destroy us," shouted another. "They are helping," whispered a few, but their voices were drowned out. Fear was stronger than gratitude. Meanwhile, on Varelian, the human fleet had turned the once dead planet into a field of rebirth. Gardens grew under artificial domes. Water purification plants roared back to life, and power grids glowed again. The survivors had begun to laugh, a sound the world had not heard in months. Admiral Kell stood on the bridge of Erebus Prime, watching the progress from orbit. His officers reported that nearly 60% of the surface had been secured. "And the attackers?" Cale asked quietly. "No trace, sir," came the reply. "They vanished after the bombardment." "No ships, no signals?" Cale nodded slowly, his gaze distant. "Then they're waiting," he murmured. The galaxy was watching too. From distant empires came transmissions, some pleading, some threatening. Humanity answered none of them. They had learned that talking to politicians achieved nothing. Action spoke louder in the deep void where the starlight could not reach. Something ancient moved, a massive ship, blacker than the night around it, drifted between asteroid fields. Its hull was alive with crimson symbols. The same ships that had burned Varelion now gathered again. They called themselves the Zalran Dominion, predators that conquered without warning. Feeding on weaker worlds, their leader, High Warlord Tyrax, stared at a holographic projection of Varelion. His golden eyes narrowed. "They dare rebuild what we destroyed," he hissed. "Who are these interlopers?" His second-in-command trembled. "Reports identify them as humans." Tyrax froze, then laughed, a deep, cruel sound. "Humans? The Deathworld vermin? They're myths." But the laughter faded when the report continued. "Their fleet is massive, their technology unmatched. Their ships are unlike anything we've seen." Tyrax rose slowly. "Then it seems the galaxy's ghosts have returned," he said. "Let us remind them why they were banished." Back on Varelion, the humans continued their work, but Cale could feel the tension building. The stars felt different, heavier, as if watching. "Sir," a young officer called out, "long-range sensors picking up faint energy spikes at the edge of the system." Cale's eyes hardened. "Contact Fleet Command," he ordered. No broadcast, no panic within minutes. Terran ships shifted position, their stealth systems activated. Cloaking them against detection, ground troops were ordered to shelter civilians. The calm skies of Varelion darkened as the first blip appeared on the horizon. A single Zalran cruiser slipped into orbit. Scanning the planet, its captain smirked, thinking the world still weak. He didn't realize that humanity was already watching, unseen. "Target lock confirmed," whispered a Terran officer. "Do we engage?" Cale shook his head. "Not yet, let them see us." From the shadows of the debris field, Erebus Prime emerged. The Zalran ship froze, alarms screaming across its deck. For a moment, the stars themselves seemed to go quiet. The human ship's size dwarfed it completely, sleek, black, and burning with faint blue light. "This is Admiral Cale of the Terran Confederacy." His voice echoed through open channels, calm but sharp as a blade. "You are trespassing in a protected recovery zone. Leave or be removed," the alien captain sneered. "You dare threaten us, Deathworlder?" We destroyed this planet once, we can do it again. Kale's reply was soft, almost gentle. Try. A second later, the void ignited. A single pulse cannon from Erebus Prime fired. One shot, clean, controlled, precise. The Zalran ship didn't explode, it simply ceased to exist, vaporized before it could even scream. Silence returned. The galaxy had seen the footage. Every relay, every hidden observer, every pirate network transmitted the moment. One shot, one ship gone. On Varelian, the survivors looked to the sky, wondering what thunder had shaken the heavens. The humans said nothing. They just continued their work. Calm and steady. In the council chambers, silence followed too. No one argued now, no one shouted, only fear remained. The Deathworlders were back, but this time, they had power no one could measure. Admiral Kale looked at the stars, his expression unreadable. They'll come again, he said quietly. And when they do, they'll understand. His second-in-command frowned. Understand what, sir? Kale's eyes gleamed with the reflection of distant suns. That mercy isn't weakness, he said. It's strength, the kind that frightens tyrants. The fleet remained in silent orbit, waiting. The humans didn't seek war, but they were ready for it. The galaxy now whispered a new name for them. Not just Deathworlders, but Guardians of the Lost. Because when humanity returned to the stars, they didn't come to conquer. They came to remind the galaxy what hope looked like. When the enemy returned for a time, the stars above Varelian were calm. The fires on the surface faded, the cities began to breathe again, and the sound of rebuilding filled the air. Humanity had brought hope back to a dying world. But even hope casts shadows, and in those shadows enemies moved. Admiral Kale stood inside the command bridge of Erebus Prime, eyes fixed on the distant nebula that glowed faintly red. They're gathering, he said quietly. His voice was steady, but the tension behind it could be felt through the air. The Zalran won't forget what happened to their scout ship. Reports flowed in, strange energy readings, sudden communications cutoffs, disappearing drones, the fleet tightened formation, sensors extended, every gun charged. Every soldier on the surface could feel it too. The strange heaviness pressing down, the silence before a storm. On the far edge of the system, reality bent. Stars flickered, and then, with a scream of tearing space, the Zalran fleet arrived. Hundreds of ships poured through the rift, black and red, their hulls shaped like blades. Their weapons burned with orange light. The largest of them dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. The flagship Harbinger of Fire led the armada, its hull covered with living armor that pulsed like veins. Inside, Warlord Tyrak stood before his command window, his mouth curling into a cold smile. So, the Deathworlders think they can play saviors, he hissed. Let's see how their compassion bleeds. When the first detection alarm sounded aboard Erebus Prime, no one panicked. Every officer knew what to do. Kale gave a single order, calm and sharp. Form defensive line, protect the surface at all costs. Terran ships moved as one, massive engines igniting in waves of blue fire. They aligned themselves between the planet and the invading armada, like shields of living steel. Behind them, transport ships carried civilians to safety, and orbital stations redirected power to the fleet's core reactors. Down on Varelian's surface, the humans warned the survivors to take cover. The sky darkened again as distant flashes lit the upper atmosphere. Lura, the last surviving Varelian commander, stood beside a human medic, fear in her eyes. They've come back, she whispered. Then they'll regret it, the medic replied softly. Adjusting her rifle, the first wave struck without mercy. Plasma storms tore through the void, red beams slicing across human shields. The Terran fleet held firm. Each ship absorbed impacts that would have shattered normal vessels. Human engineers had built for endurance, not elegance, and that design now became their strength. Kale watched the tactical display. Dozens of red marks swarming toward them. Focus fire on the forward spear, he commanded. Cut off their momentum. The Deathworlder dreadnoughts responded in unison. Rail cannons roared, launching projectiles faster than light. The void lit up with streaks of silver and blue. One by one, enemy ships broke apart, their hulls melting into dust. But the Zalran were relentless. More ships emerged, wave after wave. Their screams filled the comms as they charged blindly. We will burn your world, they shouted. Kale's reply was simple, calm, and final. You already tried. A blast struck Erebus Prime, shaking the bridge, sparks flying across the consoles. Shields down to 70%, an officer called. Hold the line, Kale ordered. Our strength isn't in our walls, it's in our will. Outside, humanity's fleet fought like no other. Every pilot, every gunner, every commander worked with precision born from survival. The galaxy had called Earth a death world, and now it understood why. Humans had evolved under constant struggle. They had learned to adapt faster, strike harder, and never surrender. Suddenly, the enemy's flagship appeared on the main display. The harbinger of fire loomed ahead, its energy core burning like a false sun. "Target acquired," said the tactical officer. Kale's gaze hardened. "Bring the Vanguard cannon online." The ship's hull began to hum, lights dimming as the energy built. On the surface below, the sky glowed white. Then came the shot. A beam of light that split the dark in half. The blast pierced through the Zalren flagship, cutting it from bow to stern. For a moment, time froze. The massive warship hung silent, glowing from within. Then it erupted into a storm of fire. The shockwave tore through the fleet, scattering ships like dust. In the silence that followed, the surviving Zalren began to retreat, their formations breaking, their courage gone. The Deathworlders did not chase, they simply watched, calm and unshaken. Kale leaned forward. "Let them run," he said. "Let them carry our message." His officers looked at him uncertain. "What message, sir?" one asked. Kale's voice was quiet but fierce. "That humanity doesn't conquer worlds," he said. "We save them, even from monsters like these." On the surface, as dawn broke, the survivors of Virelion saw the sky clear for the first time in months. The stars shone again, and in their light, the wreckage of alien ships glimmered like fading nightmares. The humans stood together, tired but unbroken. The galaxy had sent them fear and war, and they had answered with courage and compassion. And somewhere far away in the Council's golden halls, silence reigned once more, because every leader, every admiral, every emperor now knew one thing. When the Deathworlders arrive, they bring not only war but truth. And the truth was simple. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Galaxy Reacts news of the battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. From the outer colonies to the shining cores of ancient empires, every world saw the same image. The Deathworlder Fleet standing unbroken over a saved world. For the first time in generations, the galaxy saw humans not as monsters, but as something far more powerful. In the crowded halls of the Galactic Council, chaos once again filled the air. Ambassadors shouted, claws slammed against marble tables, holograms flickered with reports. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others whispered of negotiation, but beneath it all, one emotion bound them all together: fear. "The Deathworlders destroyed a fleet of the Zalren," one counselor screamed. "They'll come for us next," another cried. "No," said a quiet voice from the corner. "They didn't come to conquer. They came to protect." The room fell silent. It was Counselor Trin of the Avon species, her feathers dim and silvered with age. She had seen humans long ago, before the ban. "You've all forgotten who they are," she said softly. "They don't fight for power. They fight for purpose." Her words carried through the hall, but few wanted to believe them. Meanwhile, on Virelion, life had begun to return. Rivers flowed again. Fields were being replanted, and the people sang under their rebuilt domes. The humans stayed not as rulers, but as teachers. They showed the Virelians how to heal their planet, how to defend it, how to hope again. Children ran beside Terran engineers, laughing as they helped carry tools. The same hands that once trembled in fear now reached out with trust. Humanity had done the impossible. They had turned a world of death into a beacon of life. Admiral Kale stood on a cliff overlooking the new colony site. The sun was rising, painting the sky gold. "We did it," said his officer beside him. "For now," Kale replied, "but the galaxy won't stay silent forever." He knew the truth. Saving one world had awakened the attention of thousands, and not all of them were friendly in deep space. The surviving Zalren fleets limped into hiding, their ships burned and broken. Warlord Tyrak sat inside his shattered command room, rage burning in his golden eyes. "They will pay for this," he growled. "The humans have humiliated us before the stars." His second-in-command spoke cautiously. "Warlord, our losses are too great, the others will not follow." Tyrax's voice was low, full of venom. "Then we will make them follow." With blood, across the stars, new alliances began to form. The weaker races who once feared humanity now looked to them as protectors. Secret messages reached Earth's relay networks, requests for help, for guidance, for hope. Humanity had become something new in the galactic story, a force that frightened tyrants but inspired the broken. Inside the Grand Terran Command on Mars, a meeting was held. Generals, scientists, and diplomats gathered around the central table. The holographic map displayed hundreds of blinking lights, each one a distress call. Kale stood among them. Silent for a long time, finally he spoke. "We can't save them all," he said quietly. "But we can start." The others nodded. There was no greed in their eyes, no hunger for control, only determination. Humanity had learned long ago that power was not in domination, but in compassion. The galaxy had called them Deathworlders as an insult, but humans now wore it as a badge of honor. On Verelion, a new monument was being built. It was made from the wreckage of Zalran ships, melted and reforged into the shape of two hands, one human, one alien, reaching for each other. At the base of it, a simple inscription glowed softly. "We heard your cry." When the monument was unveiled, the Verelion people wept. Admiral Kale stood among them, silent as always. The moment wasn't about him or his fleet. It was about what humanity had reminded the galaxy, that mercy could be stronger than any weapon. Far away on distant worlds, children spoke of the Deathworlders with awe. They drew pictures of human ships. Stories spread of their courage, and in every whisper, the galaxy's fear began to change. Fear turned into respect, and respect slowly became hope. But not all were pleased. In the shadow of a dying sun, the remnants of the Zalran gathered once more, forging alliances with darker powers. "If humans rise again," Tyrax growled, "we'll burn the stars themselves, and somewhere beyond them." Deep in the forgotten archives of the Galactic Council, an ancient warning blinked to life. A file marked Human Containment Directive, Level Omega. It read only one sentence: "If humanity ever unites again, no empire will stand." Kyle didn't know those words existed, but somehow in his heart he already understood them. He looked toward the stars and said quietly, "Let them come." Because humanity had been forged in fire, tempered in loss and reborn in silence, they were no longer the outcasts of the galaxy. They were its reminder that sometimes the ones the universe fears the most are the only ones brave enough to save it. The return of fear. The galaxy was changing. Slowly, quietly, like a wound healing under starlight. But not everyone welcomed the new dawn. In the deep void, far beyond charted space, the Zalran Dominion rebuilt itself in the darkness. Their pride shattered, their hatred burning brighter than ever. Warlord Tyrax stood before his new army, ships forged from stolen technology. He watched their black hulls reflect the red glow of dying suns. "The Deathworlders humiliated us," he growled, his voice echoing through the chamber. "They think they are saviors, but they will learn. The galaxy will tremble again." His words spread through his warriors like poison. Meanwhile, on Verelion, the humans and the native people lived as one. Cities had been rebuilt, trade routes reopened, and the planet had become a symbol of unity. But Kale knew peace never lasted forever. Humanity had taught itself long ago. The moment calm arrived, chaos followed. In the orbital station above the planet, Commander Reyes studied strange signals from deep space. "Admiral, you need to see this," he said. Kale approached, eyes narrowing. The holographic map showed faint but distinct energy trails, dozens of them, all moving toward their sector. "They're coming," Reyes said. "And they're not alone." Kale stared silently. The Zalran had returned, but this time, something else came with them. Shadow signatures, unknown origins, multiple species working together, the kind of unity only fear could create. "So the tyrants have found each other," Kale said calmly. "Good. It'll save us the trouble of hunting them down one by one." He turned to his officers. "Prepare the fleet," he commanded, "and send word to Earth. Tell them the storm is coming, back on Earth." Deep within the ancient halls of Terran Command, alarms rang for the first time in decades. The massive chamber filled with lights and movement. Generals stood before holographic screens showing fleets converging across star maps. Humanity was once again being tested, but this time they were not alone. Every world that humanity had helped, the miners of Eurekthior, the healers of Venra, the survivors of Verelion, all sent messages. "We stand with you," they said. "The Deathworlders saved us. Now we fight beside them." Within hours, dozens of allied ships left their ports, painted with human symbols. Old ships rearmed, small vessels upgraded with Terran tech. Humanity had given them hope, and now that hope became an army, Kale watched as Allied fleets formed in orbit. They came for vengeance, he said, but they'll find unity. His voice carried through the comms. Calm and sharp. To all ships, this is not just our fight. It's for every world they burned, every life they broke. Today, the galaxy learns that mercy has a sword. The space around Virelion grew bright as jump drives ignited. The Terran fleet moved into formation, engines burning blue. Their hulls shimmered with the markings of every world they had saved. The Deathworlders were no longer alone. Then came the storm. The Zalaran armada tore through space, their ships screaming into reality like beasts unleashed. Red lightning arced between their hulls, new weapons powered by unknown energy. They didn't come to fight, they came to erase. The battle began before the enemy even fully arrived. Human ships opened fire with precision strikes, rail cannons and plasma waves lighting the dark. Allied fleets followed, their voices shouting across open channels. For Virelion, for Earth, for the Deathworlders, the void turned into fire. Explosions rippled across the black. Whole enemy squadrons vanished under Terran counterstrikes. But the Zalaran kept coming, thousands of them. Coordinated, ruthless, unstoppable. On the bridge of Erebus Prime, Kale stood firm. Shift power to frontal shields, he ordered. Hold formation. If we fall, they'll burn the galaxy. His ship trembled under heavy fire. Alarms blaring, sparks raining from broken panels. Yet no one flinched, not a single soul retreated. In the middle of the chaos, a massive enemy superweapon appeared. A ship larger than moons, its core glowing crimson. Tyrax's voice thundered through open space. This is the end of your mercy, Deathworlder. Kale looked at the colossal weapon and whispered, Not today. He turned to his crew. All power to the Vanguard cannon, he commanded. Target the core. The energy built up, the ship shaking violently, metal groaning under pressure. Fire, Kale said. The blast cut through the void, a beam of light pure and blinding. The enemy superweapon's core cracked open, flames consuming it from within. The explosion lit the entire sector like a new sunrise. For a long moment there was silence. Then cheers erupted through every human and allied channel. The Zalaran fleet broke apart, ships fleeing in every direction. Kale leaned on the console, exhausted but alive. Status report, he said. Minimal losses, sir, came the answer. The Allies held strong. Kale smiled faintly. Good, he said. They've learned well. On Virelion's surface, the people looked up, watching the sky burst with light. The Deathworlders had fought again, not for conquest, not for glory, but for everyone who once feared them. And across the stars, empires trembled once more. Not because humanity had returned, but because they realized what humanity had become. They were no longer just survivors of a death world. They were the guardians of life itself. The legacy of the Deathworlders, the stars were quiet again. The echoes of battle had faded, leaving behind only drifting wreckage and the soft hum of victory. The once dark sector of space now glowed faintly with the light of rebirth. Humanity and its allies had stood together, and for the first time in living memory, the galaxy had not fallen to fear. Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of Erebus Prime, watching as the debris of the Zalaran fleet scattered like dust across the void. Around him, his officers worked silently, their movements tired but filled with pride. It's over, one whispered. Kale shook his head slowly. No, he said softly. It's never over. Not for us. Below, on Virelion, the survivors gathered on open plains, looking up at the sky that once burned with war and now shone with peace. Children played among the fields where once only ash remained. Human engineers worked beside alien builders, laughter rising into the clean air. The scars of battle were still there, but they no longer defined the world. A great ceremony was held under the new sun. The leaders of allied worlds gathered beside the humans who had saved them. They called it the Day of Unity, and for the first time, banners from 100 species flew together. Kale arrived quietly without ceremony. He stood beside Lura, the Virelion commander, who had once cried for help in the dark. You rebuilt everything, she said softly. No, Kale replied. You did, we only gave you a chance. She smiled, her eyes bright with gratitude. Before you came, the galaxy called you monsters, she said. Now they call you guardians. Kale looked toward the horizon and said, We've been called worse. At the center of the gathering stood a new monument, forged from fragments of human and alien ships. Its shape was a great circle of light symbolizing unity. Across its base were inscribed the words, "When the stars fell silent." Humanity answered. When the monument lit up for the first time, the crowd fell silent. The wind carried the hum of energy through the air. And in that moment, everyone, human and alien alike, felt the same thing. Not fear, not anger, but peace far above in orbit. The Erebus Prime and her fleet began preparations to leave. Humanity had no intention of ruling the worlds they saved. That was never their way. They came, they helped, and then they vanished back into the stars. Leaving hope behind as Kale boarded the shuttle, his officer approached. "Sir, command requests your report." Kale smiled faintly. "Tell them the galaxy isn't ready for peace. But it's learning." The shuttle lifted from the ground, the crowd below waving as it rose higher and higher. Among them were children holding small flags with Earth's blue-white symbol. They didn't know war. They only knew the humans who came when everyone else turned away. Back on Earth, news of the Alliance spread like wildfire. For the first time in centuries, the homeworld was united in pride. The Terran Council declared a new era. The era of reconnection. Humanity would no longer hide behind its borders. It would reach out, not as conquerors, but as defenders of peace across the galaxy. Ancient empires began to change. The name Deathworlders no longer meant fear. It meant courage, it meant compassion born from pain, and strength born from mercy, even among the enemies who had fled. The stories began to twist. The Zalran survivors whispered of Kale's fleet like a legend. Some said their weapons burned with the light of dying stars. Others said they fought like spirits who could not die. They didn't understand that it wasn't power that made humans unstoppable. It was their will to protect what others had abandoned. Years passed and the galaxy began to heal. Firelion became a hub of learning and unity. Ships of all kinds docking side by side. On its highest peak, the monument still shone. And every time a new visitor arrived, they would look up and whisper the same words. The Deathworlders came here. Kale grew older. His hair silver, his uniform worn, but his eyes still sharp. He often visited the memorial in silence, sometimes smiling, sometimes standing alone. One day, as he looked at the stars, he said quietly, "We came from a world that tried to kill us every day, and because of that, we learned how to protect life everywhere else." When the last light of the sun touched the horizon, Kale turned to leave. His ship waited for him. The galaxy was vast, and there would always be another cry. Another world forgotten. Another story to begin. As Erebus Prime rose once more into the dark, its engines flaring bright, the stars seemed to whisper. Humanity had become a legend. A story told in every language. Across every world. The story of a species that faced extinction, defied the impossible, and turned fear into hope. The story of the Deathworlders. And the galaxy would remember them forever.